Did you know that over 72% of homeowners in HOA communities have been tangled in a dispute with their association, often over rules that feel more like personal vendettas than community standards? It's a staggering number that hits close to home for millions of us who just want to enjoy our properties without constant oversight. But what if I told you that sometimes the HOA isn't even playing by its own playbook? Today, I'm sharing how I turned the tables on my own HOA, using nothing but their rules against them, and came out on top. If you've ever felt powerless against those violation letters piling up in your mailbox, stick around, because this story might just arm you with the confidence to fight back. Homeowners associations are supposed to protect property values and keep neighborhoods looking sharp. They're governed by documents like the CC and RS covenants, conditions, and restrictions, along with bylaws and rules that outline everything from paint colors to landscaping. In theory, it's all about harmony and upkeep. But in practice, HOAs can overstep, enforcing rules selectively, ignoring their own procedures, or piling on fines that escalate faster than you can say warning letter. I've seen neighbors slapped with penalties for minor things like a trash can left out a day too long or a garden that's a shade too vibrant. And that's where things get frustrating, because while HOAs have power, they're not above the law or even their own governing documents. Sometimes they forget that. My story starts a couple of years ago when my family and I moved into what seemed like the perfect suburban neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, friendly waves from neighbors, a community pool, the works. We were excited to put down roots, and one of our first projects was revamping the backyard. We installed a sturdy basketball hoop on a freestanding pole cemented into the ground. Nothing attached to the house, just a spot for the kids to shoot hoops after school. It was visible from the street if you really craned your neck, but mostly tucked away. We figured it would be fine. After all, several other homes had similar setups, including one right across the street with a permanent hoop mounted on their garage. A few weeks later, a certified letter arrived from the HOA. Violation notice. Unauthorized structure in yard. Basketball hoop requires prior architectural approval and is deemed unsightly, potentially lowering curb appeal. They gave us 30 days to remove it or face a $100 initial fine, plus $50 daily after that. Wait, what? I double-checked photos from our home tour. No one mentioned needing approval for something like this. And those other hoops? Still standing tall. It felt arbitrary, like someone on the board had a personal grudge against backyard fun. The letter cited a vague section in the CC and RS about permanent fixtures needing review, but it didn't specify freestanding sports equipment. My blood boiled. We weren't running a junkyard. This was a standard hoop for family playtime. Ignoring it wasn't an option. Those daily fines could rack up to thousands quickly, and in some states, unchecked violations lead to liens on your home. At first, I was tempted to just comply. Rip it out, avoid the hassle, who wants to battle bureaucracy? But then I thought about the principle. Why should we bend when others didn't have to? And more importantly, why was the HOA skipping steps? Their own rules required a courtesy warning before jumping to fines, plus a hearing if requested. This letter? Straight to threats. That nagging doubt turned into determination. If they were going to enforce rules, they'd better follow them too. That's when I dove into research mode. I started by requesting a full copy of the governing documents from the HOA management company, CC and RS, bylaws, architectural guidelines, everything. Most states require HOAs to provide these upon request, often for a small fee. Mine arrived as a thick PDF packet. Late nights followed, highlighter in hand, poring over sections on architectural controls, violation procedures, and enforcement protocols. I cross-referenced state laws too, things like fair enforcement requirements and prohibitions on selective targeting. What I found was gold. The CC and RS explicitly stated that movable or temporary recreational equipment, like portable goals, didn't need approval. Only permanent installations attached to the dwelling. Our hoop? Freestanding on a pole that could technically be removed, though cemented. Borderline, but arguable. Even better, the bylaws outlined a strict process for violations. First, a friendly notice with photos and a chance to correct. Then, if ignored, a formal hearing invitation before any fine. Our letter? No prior notice, no photos, no hearing offer, just demands and threats. and selective enforcement, huge red flag. The documents prohibited arbitrary or capricious application of rules, meaning they couldn't ignore identical setups elsewhere. I snapped photos of 5 neighboring hoops, timestamps and addresses included. One was even brighter and more visible than ours. Jackpot. I also learned about due process in HOA land. Many associations must offer an internal dispute resolution or hearing. Mine did, buried in the fine print. Armed with this, I crafted a response letter, polite but firm. I disputed the violation, quoted specific sections proving our hoop qualified as exempt, attached neighbor photos showing inconsistency, and pointed out procedural failures. I requested a hearing and demanded they waive any fines pending review. Sent it certified with copies to the entire board. The tension built over the next weeks. Radio silence at first, then a snippy reply acknowledging my letter but insisting removal. They scheduled a hearing, finally following protocol. Leading up to it, my stomach was in knots. What if they doubled down? The board president was known for being rigid. Rumors swirled he'd personally driven around noting eyesores. I prepared like it was a trial. Printed documents, highlighted quotes, a timeline of events, even a petition from neighbors supporting family-friendly yards. 10 signatures? Easy to get. The hearing night arrived. A stuffy community room. Me versus the 5-member board. They started strong. President droning about maintaining standards and how hoops detract from the aesthetic. But when I presented my evidence, the shift was palpable. I calmly read the exact CC&R language exempting our type of hoop, showed the photos. If mine violates, why not these? And hammered the procedural lapses. Your own bylaws require a warning and hearing first. This jumped straight to fines. One board member squirmed, admitting they'd overlooked the neighbors. Another asked if we could compromise, like screening it with bushes. The climax hit when I dropped the big one. Selective enforcement violates your documents and state law. If pushed, I'd have no choice but to escalate. Silence. The president reddened, muttering about precedents. After a hushed sidebar, they voted unanimously to dismiss the violation. No fine, no removal required. They even agreed to clarify the rule in future newsletters to avoid confusion. Walking out, I felt 10 feet tall. They'd backed down, confronted with their own inconsistencies. In the end, our hoop stayed, fines vanished, and the board got a wake-up call on fair play. A few months later, they updated guidelines to explicitly allow freestanding hoops with minimal restrictions, change spurred indirectly by my pushback. It wasn't about winning a war. It was reclaiming fairness in a system that sometimes forgets homeowners have rights too. The biggest lessons? Knowledge is your superpower. Always get and read those governing documents. They're your shield. Document everything. Photos, letters, timelines. Respond in writing, stay professional, and don't hesitate to request hearings. Most HOAs back off when faced with facts and procedures they ignored. And remember, you're not alone. Millions deal with this, but many succeed by standing firm. If you're battling your HOA right now, don't just roll over. Dig in, fight smart, and you might just outsmart them with their own rules. What's your HOA horror story or victory? Drop it in the comments. I read them all and love hearing how others navigated this. And if you want more tips on homeownership wins, from smart upgrades to dealing with nosy neighbors, check out my other videos. Subscribe and hit that bell. You won't want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching.